The Zephyrian research vessel's Serenity's Grace floated like a dying star in the endless black of space. Its beautiful crystal hull, once shining with soft blue light, now had massive cracks running through it like spiderwebs. Air hissed out of the broken sections, creating small clouds of frozen vapor that sparkled before disappearing into the void. Inside the ship, Captain Veltar stumbled through corridors filled with sparking electronics and debris. His pale, elongated fingers worked desperately at a control panel, while his large, dark eyes darted between warning lights that flashed red across his thin face. The Zephyrians looked almost like tall, graceful humans, but their skin had a slight blue tint and their movements were fluid like dancers. "Captain, life support is failing in sections 7 through 12, called out Engineer Keshra from across the bridge. Her voice carried the musical quality that all Zephyrians possessed, but now it was strained with fear. "We have maybe 6 hours before the main systems shut down completely." Veltar's crew of 12 worked frantically around him. Some sealed hull breaches with emergency foam that hardened instantly in the cold vacuum. Main power generators that had been damaged in the attack. Everyone knew they were running out of time. The Korthax raiders had come without warning, as they always did. Their massive black warships had appeared from hyperspace like demons from the old stories, immediately opening fire on the peaceful research vessel. The Zephyrians had no weapons, only scientific equipment and archaeological tools. They were scholars, not warriors. But what they had discovered on the dead world of Kepler 440b was worth more than any weapon. Ancient ruins that told a story the galaxy had forgotten. Evidence that the so-called Deathworlders, species from harsh, dangerous planets, had once been protectors instead of destroyers. This discovery could change everything about how the galaxy worked. With his hands shaking from both fear and exhaustion, Veltar activated the emergency beacon. The device hummed to life, its smooth surface glowing with gentle patterns. He carefully entered the coordinates of their discovery and added his personal authentication codes. The message was encrypted with the highest level of security the Galactic Council used. "Please," he whispered in his native tongue, looking up at the stars visible through the cracked ceiling. "Let our friends find us before the Korthax return." He touched a small pendant around his neck, symbol of his ancestors who had explored these same stars thousands of years ago. The beacon launched its signal into space, an invisible cry for help racing toward the peaceful worlds of the Galactic Council. Veltar expected it to reach the elegant ships of the Altarians, our closest allies, perhaps the wise Centaurians who had always supported Zephyrian research. But space is vast and unpredictable. The signal bounced off damaged relay stations, scattered through asteroid fields, and bent around the gravity wells of massive stars. Instead of reaching its intended destination, the desperate message began traveling toward a small yellow star system at the edge of the galaxy, a system where a young, aggressive species called humans had just begun to reach toward the stars. Completely unaware that they were about to receive their first message from an alien civilization in desperate need of help, the Defiant suddenly appeared in space, its engines glowing as it finished its jump through hyperspace. Captain Min stood on the bridge, looking at the main screen with concern. In front of them floated a strange alien ship, clearly damaged and surrounded by floating pieces of metal and debris. "What happened here?" asked Lieutenant Chen. "The ship's weapons officer." The alien vessel was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was smooth and curved, almost like a work of art. But large holes in its hull showed the violence it had endured, Dr. Su. The ship's science officer was already scanning the damaged vessel. "I'm detecting life signs, Captain. Multiple species. But their life support systems are failing." She paused, studying her readings more carefully. There was definitely a battle here recently. Inside the alien ship, panic was spreading among the crew. Captain Veltar, a tall being with smooth blue skin and large eyes, stared at the human vessel on their viewing screen. The human ship looked nothing like the graceful vessels they were used to. Instead, it was all sharp angles and visible weapons, looking more like a machine built for war than exploration. "By the sacred gardens," whispered Veltar's second-in-command. "What is that thing?" The crew around them began talking in frightened voices, their musical language filled with worry. It could be another predator species, said their communications. Officer, her voice shaking. Look at all those weapons. They might be here to finish what the raiders started. Captain Min noticed the alien ship wasn't moving. Try to contact them, he ordered. They might need help. The human crew had no idea that their offer of assistance was causing even more fear among the aliens. Dr. Sue worked for hours trying to establish communication. She used mathematical sequences, universal symbols, and even music. Finally, after many attempts, she managed to create a basic translation system. The first words that came through were filled with fear and confusion. Back, unknown vessels, came the alien voice through the speakers. We mean no harm. Please do not attack us. Captain Min was surprised. Attack them. We're here to help. He stepped forward to the communication station, says Captain Min of the human ship Defiant. We detected your distress and came to offer assistance. There was a long silence before the alien responded. When Captain Veltar finally spoke, his voice was filled with disbelief. You are ... humans? From the death world called Earth? Death world. Dr. Sue looked puzzled. What do you mean by that? The alien captain seemed to struggle with how to explain. Your species comes from a world of death and violence. All galactic civilizations know this. Its Deathworlders are dangerous. Aggressive beings who destroy everything they touch. The human crew exchanged confused glances. Lieutenant Chun shook his head. That doesn't sound like us at all. Through careful translation, Captain Veltar began to explain how galactic society worked. Every species was classified based on their home planet. Those from peaceful garden worlds were considered civilized and safe. Those from harsh, dangerous planets were labeled as Deathworlders and banned from most civilized space. Your world has deadly weather, poisonous plants, and dangerous predators, Veltar explained. Species from such places become violent and cannot be trusted. This is known throughout the galaxy. Captain Min felt frustrated. But we're not violent. We came here to help you, not hurt you. The alien crew was having heated discussions among themselves. Some wanted to refuse human help, fearing it was a trick. Others pointed out that their ship was dying, and they had no choice. The debate continued for what felt like hours. Perhaps, Veltar finally said, his voice uncertain. These particular Deathworlders are different. They offer help instead of demanding we surrender. He paused, clearly struggling with this new idea. But can we trust them? Dr. Sue detected the aliens' fear through their communications. Captain, I think they're genuinely terrified of us. They believe we're some kind of monsters. The situation was unlike anything the human crew had experienced. They had always thought of themselves as explorers and peacekeepers, not as feared warriors. Yet here was an entire galactic civilization that saw them as dangerous predators. Need to prove them wrong, Captain Min decided. Show them through our actions that we're not the monsters they think we are. Dr. Seuss spent the next few days in deep conversation with Dalron, the Zephyrian scientist aboard the damaged vessel. Through their slowly improving translation system, she began to understand just how different the galaxy was from what humans had imagined. Your species has no idea what lies beyond your small corner of space, Dalron explained during one of their talks. His voice carried a mixture of sadness and wonder. The galaxy is not the peaceful place you might hope for. Dr. Sue leaned forward, fascinated despite the grim tone. Tell me about this galactic council you mentioned. Dalran's large eyes seemed to grow distant. The council is made up of species from garden worlds like mine. Planets where the weather is mild, the animals are gentle, and resources are abundant. We have lived in peace for thousands of years, trading knowledge and art instead of weapons and territory. That sounds wonderful, Dr. Seuss said, though she sensed there was more to the story. It was, Dalron continued, until we encountered the first Deathworlders, species from planets so harsh and violent that they created beings of incredible strength and aggression. The council made a decision that has shaped galactic politics ever since. Captain Min joined the conversation, having listened from the bridge. What kind of decision? We banned all Deathworlder species from Garden World space, Dalran admitted, his voice filled with regret. We believed they were too dangerous to coexist with peaceful civilizations. For generations, this policy kept us safe. Dr. Sue felt a chill run down her spine. So when we appeared, you immediately assumed we were hostile because of our planet. Earth is classified as one of the most dangerous death worlds in our records, Dalran said quietly. Extreme weather, deadly creatures, natural disasters, and poisonous plants. The Council's scientists calculated that any species surviving such a world would be incredibly violent. Lieutenant Chen, who had been quietly listening, shook his head. But we're not violent. We have conflicts, sure, but we also have art, music, and philosophy. Dalran looked surprised. This is exactly what confuses us about your species. You should be conquering and destroying, not offering help to strangers. The conversation was interrupted by Captain Veltar, who approached with obvious reluctance. Delron, perhaps it is time to tell them about the Korthax. Dr. Sue noticed how the alien crew tensed at the mention of that name. Who are the Korthax? They are everything the Council feared Deathworlders would become, Veltar explained. A massive empire of harsh world species that has been sweeping across the galaxy for the past 50 years. They conquer garden worlds, steal our resources, and enslave our people. Captain Min felt his stomach drop. How many worlds have they taken? Hundreds, Veltar said grimly. My people are fleeing, because our homeworld fell to them last month. We barely escaped with our lives in this one precious artifact. Dalrun gestured to a sealed container nearby. This is what we've been protecting. Archaeological evidence from an ancient dig site that changes everything we thought we knew about. Deathworlders. Dr. Sue looked at the container with growing curiosity. What kind of evidence? Records of a civilization called the Protectors, Dalron said, his voice filled with awe. They were Deathworlders who lived millions of years ago. But instead of conquering the galaxy, they protected it. The human crew exchanged amazed glances. Captain Min leaned closer. Protected it from what? From other Deathworlders. Veltar explained. The Protectors used their strength and military skills to maintain peace between different species. They were guardians, not conquerors. Dr. Sue felt her heart racing. So Deathworlders don't have to be violent and destructive? That's what this discovery suggests, Dalron said. The Protectors prove that harsh world species can choose to be peacekeepers instead of warriors. But this knowledge threatens everything the current galactic order believes. Lieutenant Chen understood immediately. The Council learned that. Deathworlders could be protectors. They'd have to admit their ban was wrong. And if the Korthax learned about it, Veltar added darkly, yes, they would destroy this evidence to maintain their image as unstoppable conquerors. Captain Min realized the massive implications. You're saying that humanity might not be destined to be violent? That we could follow the path of these ancient protectors? Perhaps, Dalron said hopefully. Your species has already shown behavior. That contradicts everything we know about Deathworlders. You offer help instead of demanding submission. Seek understanding instead of conquest. The revelation hit the human crew like a wave. They weren't just explorers who had stumbled into galactic politics. They might be the key to ending a war that had been raging for decades. The question is, Captain Min said slowly, can we prove to the galaxy that we're different from the Korthax? Can we show them that Earth's children can be protectors instead of destroyers? The quiet of space was suddenly broken by the appearance of massive ships dropping out of hyperspace. Captain Min watched his screen as 5 enormous vessels materialized. Around them, each one bristling with weapons and covered in dark armor plating, Captain Lieutenant Chen called out from his station, I'm reading multiple large signatures. These ships are at least 3 times our size. His voice was steady, but everyone on the bridge could feel the tension rising. Dr. Sue looked up from her communications with the Zephyrians. Dalron is saying something about the Korthax fleet. He seems terrified. Through the translation system, Captain Veltar's panicked voice came through. They have found us. The hunters have returned to finish what they started. Captain Min studied the alien ships on his screen. They were unlike anything in human military databases. The vessels looked like they had been designed by warriors who wanted to intimidate their enemies. Dark metal hulls were covered with spikes and weapon ports, making them look more like flying fortresses than exploration ships. Commander Heian, Captain Min called to his first officer, try to establish communication with the lead ship. Maybe we can resolve this without violence. Commander Hain worked quickly at the communications station. After several attempts, a harsh, growling voice came through the speakers. The automatic translation system struggled with the alien language, but the meaning was clear enough. Known vessel, you are interfering in Korthak's territory. Surrender the Garden World refugees, and you may be allowed to leave. Captain Min stepped forward. This is Captain Min of the human vessel Defiant. We are here on a peaceful mission to assist a damaged ship. We have no quarrel with your people. The response was immediate and chilling. Loud barking laughter echoed through the bridge. When the Korthak's commander finally spoke, his voice was filled with amusement and contempt. Humans, another weak species trying to play hero. You are far from your little corner of space, Deathworlders. Run home before you get hurt. Dr. Sue was analyzing the enemy ships with her sensors. Captain, these vessels are heavily armed, but their weapons seem to be energy-based. Their armor is thick, but it's designed to stop plasma and laser fire. Lieutenant Chen understood immediately. They're not prepared for our kinetic weapons. Most galactic civilizations probably use energy weapons exclusively. Captain Min nodded grimly. What else can you tell me about their formation they're moving into? A standard attack pattern, Chen reported. Very rigid, very predictable. It's like they've used the same tactics for so long that they don't expect anything different. Through the communication system, War Commander Thexai's voice boomed with confidence. You have 30 seconds to surrender, humans.
To that.
We will take what we want from your wreckage. The Korthak ships began moving into position, their massive forms casting shadows over the smaller human vessel. Each enemy ship was a fortress of weapons and armor.
Nice.
Designed to overwhelm opponents through sheer firepower and intimidation. Captain Commander Heian said quietly, "They're not even bothering to scan our weapons properly. They think we're just another easy target." Captain Min felt a cold determination settle over him. These Korthaks had been terrorizing peaceful species for decades, treating conquest like a game. They had destroyed the Zephyrians' homeworld and countless others, leaving trails of suffering. Across the galaxy, all hands, battle stations, Captain Min announced over the ship's communication system. We're about to show these hunters what happens when they underestimate humanity. The human crew moved with practiced precision, each person knowing their role. Unlike the Korthaks, who relied on overwhelming force, human military doctrine emphasized flexibility and adaptation. They had spent centuries preparing for wars they hoped would never come. Lieutenant Chen brought up the weapons systems. Railguns charged and ready, Captain. Missile tubes loaded. These Korthaks have never faced kinetic weapons before.
What?
Used to fighting Garden Worlders, Dr. Sue observed. Peaceful species who probably surrender rather than fight back. They have no idea what they're dealing with. War Commander, the Kai's final transmission came through filled with cruel satisfaction. Time is up, humans. Prepare to join the countless species who thought they could stand against the Korthak's empire. The alien ships began their attack run, moving in the same formation they had probably used hundreds of times before, but this time they were about to face an opponent who had learned warfare in the harsh. Laboratories of Earth's conflicts. Captain Min watched the approaching enemy fleet with steady eyes. Let's teach them why you should never underestimate a species from a death world. The first Korthak ship opened fire with a massive energy beam that lit up the darkness of space. Captain Min gripped his command chair as the Defiant shook under the impact of the alien weapons hitting their shields. Shield strength down to 70%, reported Lieutenant Chen from the weapons station. But Captain, look at this. Their energy weapons are having trouble penetrating our armor plating. Captain Min smiled grimly. That's because we build our ships to survive asteroid impacts and solar radiation. Commander Heian, begin evasive pattern Delta. The Defiant suddenly dove beneath the Korthak's formation, moving in a way that seemed impossible for such a large vessel. The human crew, trained in high-gravity environments, barely felt the crushing forces that would have knocked most aliens unconscious. They're trying to follow us, Commander Heian called out, but their ships are too big and slow. They're built for intimidation, not maneuverability. Dr. Sue watched her sensors in amazement. The Korthax pilots are struggling with our movement patterns. They keep overshooting our position. Lieutenant Chen had been waiting for this moment. Captain, I have a firing solution on their lead ship. Requesting permission to engage. Fire all forward railguns. Captain Min ordered. The human weapons were completely different from anything the Korthax had faced before. Instead of energy, beams, solid metal projectiles shot out at incredible speeds. The kinetic rounds slammed into the alien ship's armor with devastating effect. Direct hit, Chen shouted. Their armor is cracking. They're not designed to handle solid projectiles. War. Commander Thexa's voice roared through the communication system. Impossible. How are these primitives damaging our ships? But Captain Min wasn't finished. Chen, target their weapon systems with the mining charges. Now, the Defiant had been converted from a deep space mining vessel, and its original equipment was about to prove its worth in combat. Explosive charges designed to break apart. Asteroids were launched at the Korthax ships. The alien commanders watched in confusion as small objects approached their vessels. Then the mining charges detonated, sending shockwaves through the enemy. Hulls, systems failed, weapons went offline, and hull plates buckled under the unexpected assault. What kind of weapons are these? Demanded one of the Korthax captains over their communication channel. They're not weapons, Commander Haynes said with satisfaction. They're mining tools. We're using construction equipment to tear apart their war machines. The second Korthax ship attempted to ram the Defiant, but Captain Min saw it coming. All hands braced for impact maneuver. The human ship spun sideways at the last moment, letting the massive alien vessel pass harmlessly by. As it did, Lieutenant Chen fired a spread of missiles into the enemy's engines. Engine section destroyed, he reported. That ship is dead in space. Aboard the Zephyrian vessel, Captain Veltar and his crew watched the battle in stunned silence. Dalron Veltar whispered, "Are we seeing what I think we're seeing?" "Two Deathworlder species fighting," Dalron replied, his voice filled with awe. "But the humans, they're not fighting like conquerors. They're fighting like protectors." The battle raged for what felt like hours. The Korthax ships were larger and more heavily armed, but the humans fought with a creativity and adaptability that completely confused their enemies. Every time the aliens thought they understood human tactics, Captain Min would try something completely unexpected. "Use the cargo bay doors as shields," he ordered during one exchange. "Route power from life support to the engines." "Captain, that's insane," Commander Hayne protested. "If we lose life support, we'll be dead anyway if we don't try," Captain Min replied. "Trust me." The unconventional tactic worked. The heavy cargo doors absorbed several energy blasts, while the Defiant accelerated past the enemy formation. But the human ship was taking damage too. Sparks flew from control panels, and the lights flickered as power systems strained under. The assault. "Hull breach on Deck 4, reported an engineering officer. "We're losing atmosphere." "Seal that section," Captain Min ordered. "How are our weapons?" "Railgun 3's offline," Chen reported, "but I still have enough firepower to keep them honest." The turning point came when the humans managed to disable the Korthax command ship. A perfectly placed missile strike knocked out their main communications array, leaving the enemy fleet confused and unable to coordinate their attacks. War. Commander Thesai's voice came through the static-filled communication channel. "Retreat. All ships withdraw to safe distance." The Korthax fleet pulled back, their dark ships disappearing into the distance, but Captain Min knew they would return with reinforcements. "Status report," he called out. "We're hurt but alive, Commander." Heian replied, "The question is, what do we do now?" Through the communication system, Captain Veltar's voice was filled with amazement. "Humans, ... you fought to protect us. No Deathworlder species has ever done that before." The silence after the battle felt heavy as both ships floated in space, their crews trying to process what had just happened. Captain Min walked through the damaged corridors of the Defiant, checking on his people and assessing the repairs they would need. "Captain," Dr. Sue called from the science station, "I'm getting a transmission from the Zephyrian ship. They want to share something with us." Dalren's voice came through the communication system, but this time it carried a different tone. Gone was the fear and suspicion. replaced by something that sounded almost like hope. Captain Min, your species, has done something unprecedented. You fought not to conquer us, but to protect us. This changes everything we thought we knew about Deathworlders. Captain Veltar joined the conversation, his musical voice filled with wonder. In all our recorded history, no harsh world species has ever defended Garden Worlders. You have shown us that the path of the ancient protectors might still be possible. Dr. Su leaned forward eagerly. Tell us more about these protectors. What did they do differently? According to our archaeological evidence, Dalron explained, they were Deathworlders who chose to use their strength to maintain peace instead of creating war. They stood between aggressive species and peaceful ones, serving as guardians of galactic civilization. Commander Heian frowned thoughtfully. But what happened to them? If they were so successful, why don't they exist anymore? That's the mystery, Captain Veltar replied. They simply vanished from history millions of years ago. Some believe they evolved beyond the need for physical existence. Others think they were destroyed by the very species they tried to protect. Captain Min felt a chill run down his spine. And now, you think humanity might be able to follow their path? Perhaps, Dalron said carefully. Your actions suggest that Earth's children might be capable of choosing protection over conquest. But the galaxy will need proof before they believe such a thing is possible. The conversation was interrupted by urgent alarms from both ships. Lieutenant Chen's voice cut through the bridge. Captain, I'm detecting massive hyperspace signatures. Multiple large vessels approaching fast. Dr. Su's sensors lit up with readings that made her heart sink. It's a full Korthax battle fleet. At least 20 ships, including several dreadnoughts. Captain Veltar's voice came through with barely controlled panic. They must have called for reinforcements. Cannot fight so many ships. Captain Min looked at his damaged vessel and knew the truth. The Defiant had fought bravely, but they were one ship against an entire fleet. They had maybe minutes before the Korthax arrived in overwhelming numbers. Captain, Dr. Su said quietly, we could try to run. Our ship might be fast enough to escape, and I'll leave the Zephyrians to be slaughtered. Captain Min shook his head. It's not who we are. Dalron's voice came through the communication system with sudden urgency. Captain Min, I have an idea. We could broadcast the archaeological evidence on all galactic frequencies. Show the entire galaxy what we've discovered about the protectors. How would that help us now? Commander Heian asked. It wouldn't save us, Captain Veltar admitted. But it might change everything for the future. If other species see that Deathworlders can choose to be protectors, it could unite the galaxy against the Korthax. Dr. Su understood immediately. You want to include footage of our battle? Show them humans fighting to defend refugees instead of conquering them? Exactly, Dalron said. Your species has proven that the ancient way is still possible. Even if we don't survive, that message needs to reach the galaxy. Captain Min felt the weight of the decision. They were about to face annihilation, but they had a chance to leave behind something that might change galactic civilization forever. Do it, he ordered. Broadcast everything. Let the galaxy see what really happened here. The transmission began just as the Korthax fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 20 massive warships surrounded the two small vessels, their weapons charging for what looked like an easy victory. War Commander Thak's high-S voice boomed across all frequencies. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Continue to resist, and we will make you suffer. Captain Min looked at his crew, seeing determination in their eyes despite the hopeless odds. All hands, prepare for battle. We're going to show the galaxy what it means to be human. The archaeological evidence and battle footage spread across galactic communication networks. Reaching species that had never heard of humans before, they watched in amazement as a small group of Deathworlders chose to stand against overwhelming odds to protect innocent civilians. This is Captain Min, of the human vessel Defiant, he said into the transmission. We may not survive this battle, but we want the galaxy to know that not all Deathworlders are the same. Some of us choose to protect instead of destroy. As the Korthax fleet prepared to attack, the humans took their positions, ready to prove that the spirit of the ancient protectors lived on across the galaxy. Communication networks lit up with the transmission from the battle site. On the garden world of Serenity Prime, Council member Nathara watched her viewing screen with growing amazement as the footage showed human ships fighting desperately to protect Zephyrian refugees. "This cannot be real," she whispered to her aide. "Deathworlders do not protect others. They conquer and destroy." But the evidence was undeniable. The transmission showed humans taking damage to their own ship while shielding the damaged Zephyrian vessel. It showed Captain Min's crew working frantically to help strangers they had never met before. On the Council world of Harmony Station, emergency sessions began immediately. Council leader Vexton called for order as representatives from dozens of species argued loudly among themselves. "The evidence is clear," declared Representative Kaluma from the Aldarian Federation. "These humans are different from other Deathworlders. They chose to protect instead of conquer. One act of heroism does not erase millions of years of evolution," countered Representative Zephyli from the Crystalline Collective. "Their planet is still a death world. Their species is still dangerous." But the archaeological evidence was causing even more debate. The ancient records showed that the legendary protectors had indeed been Deathworlders who used their strength to maintain peace throughout the galaxy. If the protectors were real, Representative Kaluma argued, then our entire policy toward harsh world species has been wrong. We have been turning away potential allies out of fear. On civilian networks, the footage spread even faster. Garden. World citizens watched in fascination as the small human ship outmaneuvered the massive Korthax vessels. They saw creativity and adaptability that seemed impossible from a species they had been taught to fear. Dr. Yelena, a historian on the academic world of New Athens, paused her lecture to address her students. "What you are seeing challenges everything we thought we knew about the relationship between planetary environment and species behavior." Her students watched the battle footage with wide eyes. Professor One asked, "If these humans can choose to be protectors, why did the Council ban all Deathworlders?" Because Dr. Yelena replied carefully, "Fear often makes us act without understanding. The question now is whether we can overcome that fear." Meanwhile, in the dark reaches of Korthax space, War Commander Thexai received an urgent transmission from the High Command. The voice that came through was filled with cold anger. "Commander, this transmission threatens everything our empire stands for. If the galaxy believes that Deathworlders can be protectors, they will no longer fear us." Thexai understood immediately. The Korthax Empire relied on the galaxy's belief that all harsh world species were naturally violent and unstoppable. If humans proved that Deathworlders could choose peace, it would undermine decades of psychological warfare. "What are your orders?" he asked. "Eliminate all witnesses? Destroy the archaeological evidence. Make sure this message never spreads further." Additional Korthax fleets began moving toward the battle site from across their territory. Hundreds of ships converged on the location where the small human vessel waited with its Zephyrian allies. Back on the Garden Worlds, the debate continued to rage. Some council members began calling for immediate contact with the human government, while others demanded that the transmission be declared false propaganda. "We cannot ignore this," Representative Kolyuma insisted. "If these humans are truly the spiritual successors to the protectors, then we need their help against the Korthax." "And if they are not?" Representative Zephyli countered. "What if this is all an elaborate deception? What if we invite another conquering species into our space?" The transmission had achieved exactly what Dalran and Captain Veltar had hoped. It had started a galaxy-wide conversation about the nature of Deathworlders and the possibility of change. On remote frontier worlds, species that had suffered under Korthax attacks watched the footage with growing hope. Perhaps these humans could do what no one else had been able to accomplish. Perhaps they could stand up to the empire that had terrorized the galaxy for so long. In deep space, more Korthax fleets continued their approach toward the human position. War Commander Thexai knew that this battle would determine the future of galactic civilization. If the humans survived to tell their story, everything would change. "All ships, prepare for final assault," he ordered. "We end this now, before their message spreads any further." The galaxy held its breath as two different visions of the future prepared to clash in the darkness between the stars. The massive Korthax fleet emerged from hyperspace like a dark storm. Their hundreds of ships blotting out the stars around the Garden World of Altair Prime. Captain Min stood on the bridge of the battered Defiant. watching sensors that showed impossible odds. Captain Lieutenant Chen reported grimly, "I count over 200 enemy vessels, dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, and destroyer squadrons. We're looking at the entire Korthak's Third Fleet." Dr. Sue looked up from her station with worry in her eyes. The Zephyrian ship can barely move. Their engines are failing and they have no weapons. Captain Min felt the weight of the moment. His small crew faced an enemy fleet that could conquer entire star systems, but they had made their choice. "We stand between them and the civilians, no matter what happens." War Commander Thek's High's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Human vessel, you have caused enough trouble. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." "This is Captain Min of the Defiant," he replied steadily. "We will not surrender, and we will not abandon the innocent people under our protection." Just then, Dr. Sue's sensors detected something unexpected. "Captain, I'm reading hyperspace signatures. Multiple ships approaching from different directions." The space around Altair Prime began filling with vessels, but these weren't Korthak's reinforcements. Elegant ships with curved hulls and peaceful designs dropped out of hyperspace, taking positions around the battle area. "Unknown vessels," came a transmission. "This is Captain Nethera of the Serenity Prime Defense Force. We have come to witness this confrontation." More ships continued to arrive. Representatives from dozens of garden worlds had come to see for themselves whether these humans were truly different from other Deathworlders. Captain Min realized what was happening. They're not here to fight. They're here to watch, to see. If we're really willing to die for strangers... The Korthak's fleet began its attack, launching thousands of energy bolts at the lone human ship. The Defiant twisted and turned through the barrage, her crew fighting with desperate skill to avoid annihilation. "Shields down to 20%, Commander Heian reported as the ship shook under the assault. Lieutenant Chen returned fire with everything they had, but their weapons barely scratched the enemy's massive vessels. Were like a single bee attacking a swarm of hornets. Among the watching Garden World fleets, debates raged on every bridge. "Look at them," observed Captain Kaluma of the Alderian ship, Peaceful Dawn. "They could retreat and save themselves, but they stay to protect the refugees." "This is madness," replied his weapons officer. "One ship against an entire fleet? They're going to die for nothing." But Captain Kaluma was thinking of the transmission they had all seen. "No, they're dying for something. They're proving that Deathworlders can choose to be guardians." The Defiant continued her hopeless battle, using every trick Captain Min and his crew knew. They turned cargo containers into missiles, used engine exhaust as weapons, and flew maneuvers that should have been impossible for organic beings to survive. "Captain," Dr. Sue called out, "one of the Garden World ships is breaking formation. The Alderian vessel is moving toward the battle." Captain Kaluma's voice came through the communication system. "Human vessel, this is the Peaceful Dawn. We're not warriors, but we cannot stand by and watch courage like this go unanswered." The elegant Alderian ship opened fire on the Korthak's fleet with its limited weapons. Soon, other Garden World vessels joined the fight, their crews inspired by the human sacrifice. "This is impossible, War Commander," Thek's High snarled. "Garden Worlders do not fight. They surrender and beg for mercy." "Not today," Captain Min replied, his ship now surrounded by allies he had never expected to find. The battle raged across the star system, but the Defiant was taking fatal damage. Explosions rocked the ship as critical systems failed one by one. "Captain," Commander Heian said quietly, "we're losing life support. The reactor is overloading." Captain Min nodded, understanding what had to be done. He opened a channel to the entire galaxy, knowing this would be his final transmission. "This is Captain Min of the human vessel Defiant. We came to the stars, not as conquerors, but as explorers. We found a galaxy in fear, terrorized by those who use strength to oppress the weak. Today, we choose to stand with the innocent against the oppressor. We choose to protect, not conquer." The Defiant made one final charge at the Korthak's command ship, her crew ensuring that their sacrifice would count. The explosion that followed lit up the entire star system. Taking the enemy flagship with it, in the aftermath, the remaining Korthak's fleet retreated in confusion. They had never faced opponents willing to die for strangers, They didn't know how to fight such determination. Captain Veltar's voice came through the communication system. It's filled with amazement and sorrow. The humans have shown us what? The ancient protectors must have been like. They chose to guard the galaxy instead of conquering it. 3 months later, in the great chambers of the Galactic Council, humanity was formally recognized as the galaxy's new protectors. The age of Deathworlder isolation was over, and a new chapter of galactic civilization began with humans as its unlikely guardians. The sacrifice of the Defiant had proven that some Deathworlders could choose to protect instead of destroy, changing the galaxy forever.